I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's Israeli Memorial Special, Israelis commemorate Memorial Day. A special camp for troubled youth is established in the name of two fallen soldiers, and Israel unveils an incredible new memorial hall that could end up winning an award for the best building in the world. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Yom HaZikaron, or Israeli Memorial Day, has officially commenced in the Holy Land, and the traditional flag-laying ceremony in honor of the IDF's fallen soldiers has just been held on Jerusalem's Mount Herzl. The Israeli Chief of Staff, Police Commissioner, and Shin Bet Director all gathered with bereaved families to remember those fallen. This marks the 12th year in a row that the IDF has been commemorating fallen soldiers by placing flags on each and every grave at Israel's military cemetery in Jerusalem. Each flag is decorated with a black ribbon and will remain in place until Israel's Day of Remembrance on May 4th. Israeli Memorial Day began at 6 p.m. this evening and will last until tomorrow evening, with all businesses shutting down so that Israelis can participate in the dozens of memorial ceremonies that will be held throughout the country. Tel Aviv's central Kikar Rabin Plaza has already filled up with thousands for a massive ceremony. And this year, for the first time ever, English speakers in Israel will even be able to participate in an English language ceremony in Jerusalem called 70 Years of Remembrance. Over 23,000 Israelis have been killed in the line of duty. It's in their honor that the country is bowing its head tonight, and we're honored to have one of the biggest Israeli heroes of all time joining us in the studio. Brigadier General Avigdor Ka'alani is an IDF veteran of 30 years in the military and a recipient of both the Medal of Distinguished Service and the Medal of Valor. Thank you for joining us. Now, Brigadier General, who are you honoring today? Is Israel's 70th Memorial Day particularly special to you?
Yes, for me, it's Memorial Day. It's the day that I remember all my friends. I remember all the days, every day. But this is a special day because we are moving from here. We are going to Memorial Days. We are going to the cemetery, and we have a big ceremony this night. And I'm going to speak about my brother that I lost during the war. And my wife, she's going to Har Herzl in Jerusalem because she lost two brothers. And this is for us, we don't need a Memorial Day. We remember every day. But it's a Memorial Day for the nation, that all the nation stop the routine and they salute to those soldiers that they
Well, and I think it's, particularly special here in Israel because almost every single person is affected by this. Going into the army is an obligatory service. Now, you joined the army in 1962 and you left in 1992. That's a very, very long service. How have your views on the country perhaps changed over the course of your military career?
Oh, this is completely different. In the Independence War, our soldiers used to shoot with the sandals and things like that, without uniform, without weapons. Now it's we are imperi. We can stop everybody all over this area, and I believe that we have maybe the best army in the world, and we need it because all the threat around us. It's when you see the Israeli soldiers, this is the secret weapon. It's not the tank, ship, or the aircraft. It's the Israeli soldier, the value of his life, all what he believed, and all the responsibility for the country. Every soldier in Israel feel like he's holding the flag of the country in his hand.
Absolutely, and you feel that more than ever on a day like this.
Responsibility.
Now, by 29 years old, you were a lieutenant colonel and a battalion commander, so you were very, very young when you were fighting against Syria and the Golan Heights during the Yom Kippur War. I can't even imagine what it was like to be under so much responsibility at such a young age. How did you deal with that?
The problem was after 67, I was in a year in a hospital in 67. 60% of my body was burned. And I was scared to go back to the war because I thought maybe I have a trauma, and I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I was battalion commander during the 73 war, and I found myself with my soldiers fight with the ratio between Israeli tanks and Syrian tanks, 1 tank against 10. And we, our mission in the first days was to block them in the Golan Heights. We fought for 4 days. The feeling like 29 commander, I feel like it's a big brother for my soldiers, and I have responsibility to bring them back from the war. And I was look all around to try to protect them and to find the solution to the situation.
Well, and sadly, you had a tragic loss while you were serving in the military, one that nobody really told you about it. You mentioned your brother. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have 2 brothers and 1 sister, and my brother Emmanuel, he got married 10 days before the war. He got married. He was in the middle of honeymoon. He joined the Armor Corps because of me. He asked me to support him to be a tank commander, and I support him. And he fought in Sinai, and I fought in the Golan Heights. And he was the tank commander, and he found himself on the moment that I thought about my life in the Golan Heights, in the critical moment. He fought on Sinai, and he was killed by the Egyptian.
And
I didn't know about that. Nobody told me about that. My father, he was a fighter too. They asked him to go back home. He didn't know which one from his kids was killed. And I had a brother in my unit in the Golan Heights, and they asked him to go back. And I was the commander in the Golan Heights.
And they didn't want to
I
tell you. They
served
didn't
until
want to
the last
affect you.
moment, until the ceasefire.
You know, we speak, Yom HaZikaron is very interesting because the next day afterward, Israelis celebrate Israeli Independence Day, and it's kind of going from this place of sorrow to then this, place of pride and happiness. What are your wishes for the state of Israel now that it's the 70th birthday of the country?
I can tell you, I worry about the future of our country, not because we have a security problem, no. I'm talking about the community, how we talk each other, how we support each other, how we study, how to feel that responsibility for the country. This is what I worry about the future. My feeling that we're strong enough. We have a nice country, beautiful country. We have everything in Israel. It's like America here. People don't know that. America is here. Over there in the United States, we have everything. We argue between us. The people in Israel are so clever. Everybody feel like he's the prime minister. And if he gets the feeling that he can lead the country. And we have so many parties, so many groups.
So what is the hope there?
I think we will find a way how to live together. And I believe that all the threat around us put us together in the same mission to protect the country. This is Independence Day 70. I was born 4 years before that. And I can tell you I'm very appreciative what we have done.
Well, I can tell you that the nation is very appreciative of what you have done for the country. Thank you so much for joining us. As Israeli Memorial Day commences, Israelis across the country are commemorating those lost with emotional ceremonies. But the families and friends of 2 fallen soldiers have taken a different approach to remembering their loved ones. They've just launched a special camp in the desert called Nitzan MPO to help future generations of Israeli youth. This is a story that's very close to my heart because it actually involves a personal connection. Fallen soldier Yuval Dagan, who happens to be the son of one of my father's closest army buddies. Take a look.
יובל שירת באגוז, התחיל מבצע צוק איתן, שלחו אותם פתאום יום אחד לחופשת התרעננות הביתה, בבוקר ליוויתי אותו לתחנת הרכבת. לפני שהוא ירד לרכבת אמרתי לו, יובי אל תהיה גיבור, תהיה גיבור של אמא ותחזור הביתה. וככה שנייה אחרי שאני אומרת את המשפט הזה, אני חושבת לעצמי, למה אמרתי את זה בכלל? שבועיים אחרי זה, הגיעו להודיע לנו שהוא נפל בסג'איה.
On July 21st, 2014, 7 IDF soldiers were killed in the Gaza Strip during clashes with Hamas. Staff Sergeant Yuvi Dagan was one of the victims, a 22-year-old combat soldier in the Golani Brigade. His unit was caught in the middle of a fatal exchange of fire during the 2014 Gaza war.
יובי הילד נורא מצחיק, חיוך. באותו יום הוא אמר לי, אל תדאגי אמא לי, הכל בסדר. כאילו אנחנו נלך, נעשה מה שצריך ונחזור. כל החלומות שהיו לו והתוכניות שהיו לו לעתיד, הם נגדעו ביום אחד.
Before he was drafted into the army, Yuvi did a year of voluntary service at a camp for troubled youth in southern Israel. It was there with his new friends that he was inspired to find a way to give back in the future.
הם רקמו ביחד את החלום שיום אחד כשהם יהיו גדולים, הם יקימו כפר נוער חקלאי בדרום.
That was a dream that Yuvi's friends never forgot about, especially after he was killed. In 2015, his army buddy Yonatan Kam began putting together a plan to open up a rehabilitation center for troubled youth in the desert. And then Yonatan received a shocking phone call. Another member of his army unit had been hurt in a devastating earthquake, 22-year-old Or Asraf.
אחרי שצוק איתן כולם טסו לחול טיפה לנקות את הראש ולחשוב, והוא נפצע מאוד מאוד קשה, הוא עשה שם שיקום והוא טס לחול והוא הרגיש שהוא צריך עוד קצת זמן. קיבלנו את הטלפון שאור נהדר. ישראלי אחד מתוך 2,000 שנמצא בנפאל ואף אחד לא מוצא אותו.
ואתה לך בשלום ותנוח ותעמוד לגורלך לקץ הימים.
לפחות הוא לא נהרג במלחמה. הוא נהרג במקום הכי יפה בעולם, באמת המקום הכי יפה בעולם. כשהוא רגוע, כשהוא לא מפחד, ולפחות זה.
It was clear from the get-go that Or would also become part of the project to build a youth camp. He too imagined a similar future for himself.
מה שנמצא עכשיו זה הכל גידולי חורף, זה קייל, כרובית, שומר, קולורבי.
This is Nitzan MPO, an agricultural youth farm in the middle of the desert. It's essentially a rehab center where troubled teenagers receive therapy through agricultural work and life in the wild.
כרגע אנחנו נמצאים בעבודה עם 2 נערים, בשאיפה בקצה להגיע עד 8 נערים. אנחנו רוצים לעבוד במרחב אקולוגי מקיים, בעצם להיות משק אוטרקי. יש לנו בחווה משק חי, 2 סוסים, בערך 10 תרנגולות שנותנות לנו ביצים.
The camp is just in its very beginning. In fact, they're still constructing their very first building, all by hand. But Yonatan says the work is therapeutic in of itself.
נער שהגיע לפה בתחילת תהליך התבטא במילה אחת, טוב, כן, לא. אחרי תאריך של חודשיים שאנחנו מדברים בעיקר רגע על הסתכלות פנימה, על שיח רגשי, אנחנו רואים שהוא כבר מסוגל להביע את עצמו, שבעינינו לפחות זה איזשהו שינוי אדיר שמתקיים.
כשיובי בא לפה לעשות שנת שירות, שאלו אותו, מה היית רוצה שיקרה בשנה כזאת? הוא כתב שהוא היה רוצה להיות משמעותי עבור ילד אחד לפחות. ואני לקחתי את המשפט הזה ואמרתי לעצמי שאם בחווה הזאת ילד אחד יעבור שם איזשהו תהליך, אז כבר הגשמתי איזשהו חלום שלו. לא קל, אבל זה ממשיך דרך. זה ממשיך דרך.
Right now, Nitzan NPO is looking for donations to help expand its facilities. The youth camp has the potential to help dozens upon dozens of troubled youth, but in order to do so, it has to grow. So if you're interested in donating, call co-founder Yonatan Kam at 054-667-0074, and you can also see the bank account in the super below. All right. 13 years ago, every fiance's worst nightmare came true for Susie Doran Preston. Her 23-year-old boyfriend and soldier, Tsiki Eyal, was killed while serving in the reserves in the West Bank. Susie is actually here in the studio with us today to tell us her story, and we're very honored. Thank you for joining us, Susie.
Thanks for having me.
So let's begin with just kind of tell us a little bit about what happened to him.
It was in 2005 during Chol Hamoed Pesach, and Tziki was in Miluim service near Hebron. And there was an emergency checkpoint, and he was, they took their places, and a taxi stopped and backed up, and there was he was hit by the taxi, and then his unit opened fire where he was actually ultimately killed by friendly fire by one of his comrades.
And you weren't living in Israel at the time when this happened. You were actually abroad in Thailand, right?
Correct.
Doing volunteer work or for the Peace Corps.
Yes.
And so you hadn't actually immigrated, but you had been together for, at this point, a year or so. Can you tell us a little bit about how you met each other and kind of what your plans were in terms of coming back?
Well, I was in the Peace Corps in Thailand up north, and at that time is when I discovered Israelis. I didn't understand at the time that it was the common route for post-military Israelis, but that's how we met one evening in Chiang Mai, and it was an instant connection. And through Tziki, I came to know about Israel more than the Newsweek magazines that I read in my village every week. And eventually, I came to visit Israel and meet the family. We became very serious. We had a very lively and fast-paced relationship, and we were very excited to make our plans together in the future.
And you were planning to convert to Judaism as well and move to Israel. And so you would think after going through such a tragic situation like this that you might take a step back and say, no way, I don't want anything to do with this country. But that's not what happened. Can you tell us a little bit more about, how this changed your future?
When I arrived in Israel, I didn't know any Jewish ritual with mourning or anything like that. So I actually came to Israel after Tziki died, which was a month after my father also died. I came to Israel and I didn't get on a plane for many months. I just stayed with Tziki's family trying to recoup what I lost. It was a very dark and emotional time. And 6 months later, I guess I came to the conclusion that I would use Judaism to put my life back together. And so I decided to convert and follow our plan together, which was for me to convert and then go to grad school and live in Israel ultimately.
It's amazing that you were able to stay here. I mean, how did being in Israel kind of impact the way that you dealt with this grief? Because obviously, a day like Yom HaZikaron, we see that there's so many people dealing with loss here. Did that have an impact on you in any way?
Israel has an incredible way to hold anyone who's suffering and hold them up. And I felt that Israel was the only place that I could go through my grief and also function as a normal person. And so it was very comfortable for me to stay. I had a lot of support from the community, the Olim community, as well as Tziki's family. And
you're also part of a really interesting organization, right? It's called Girlfriends of Fallen Soldiers.
Correct.
And tell us about what that's like. I know that you even recently met with young women who also kind of went through a similar experience, I can imagine how that feels for you 13 years after going through something like this.
The Girlfriends of Fallen Soldiers is an incredible volunteer-only group of women who all of us have lost a soldier at some point in our lives, and we serve to mentor other young women who have gone through the same loss. We provide group therapy. We even have work in Knesset to try to get recognized with more bereavement rights and things like that. Our organization supports over 400 women.
Which is just crazy to think that that's the number, that we're even looking at, because so many people are being affected by this. And he was 23 years old, so you were just 24 when this happened.
Correct.
And this essentially changed the course of your life. Today, you are married, right?
Correct.
And you have children.
Yes.
How has it been to raise your children in this country, especially kind of knowing that history and what happened with Tziki? And how have your kids kind of reacted to hearing this story?
That's a very big question. I think becoming a mother and combining that with the loss of Tsiki is to understand that a mother's grief is the greatest grief parents' grief is the greatest grief I've ever witnessed. It's something that's on my mind a lot as I raise my children here. I'm extremely proud that they are Israeli. It's amazing to come 13 years later when 13 years ago, my life was very dark, and now it's very rich, and my kids are very Israeli, and their Hebrew is very good. But there is a reality that we are not free from the conflict yet, and we are all at risk for future heartbreak. But that's also something that, while you can pretend you can avoid it, you know, it's something that I don't think even when the time comes that you're ready to confront your children joining the army or participating in these things.
Well, you told me this before we started the interview, that your 7-year-old actually kind of came to terms with this experience that you had gone through because you're still in contact with Tsiki's family, right? Can you tell us?
Yes.
That's
Tsiki's family we've been very lucky that we've always had a very close relationship. Tsiki's father walked me down the aisle when I got married, and he served as a tzandak during my Brit Milah. And my children call them Saba Moshe and Savta Tirza. And it's a very strong and powerful relationship. But I think there's also a reality, like my daughter asked me last year, why is it whenever I see Savta Tirza, we sit and cry together? So there's a very big reality of, you know, the pain of loss and how we decide to rebuild our lives. But I'm always grateful that they're an active part in our life. It makes the shock of our history together a little bit less painful, I think.
All right. Well, Susie, you're incredibly strong, and you know I read a lot of your writing online as well, which is incredibly powerful. So you guys should check out some of her work. Susie, thank you for joining us and telling us this story.
Thank you so much.
All right, just in time for Israeli Memorial Day, an incredible new memorial hall has just been opened to the public in Jerusalem, and it's an absolute architectural masterpiece. From the outside, the hall may not seem very impressive, but with just one look at what lies underground, I can promise you'll be blown away. Architects from the Israeli company Kimmel Eshkolot are behind the incredible structure, an underground memorial hall that set atop the historic Mount Herzl in Jerusalem to commemorate Israeli soldiers killed in the line of duty. The hall was actually completed back in 2017, but wasn't open to the public until recently. And now visitors can take part in public tours accompanied by a video app that takes them through the stories of the fallen soldiers being commemorated. In the center of the memorial, there's a 250-meter wall of names that's made up of 23,000 bricks, all of which are individually engraved with the name of a fallen soldier and date of death. Each brick actually lights up on the anniversary of the person's death, making the memorial feel more present than ever. The Vortex-like Israeli Memorial is one of 62 projects around the world that are competing to receive this year's international prize for the world's best new building. And given the purpose behind Israel's new memorial hall, if it does win the prize from the Royal Institute of British Architects, the award will be more special than ever. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Today is a day for commemoration, grief, and for sorrow. That's why today's word, meaning sorrow, is tsar. Some people might think that tsar or grief is a bad thing, that you should avoid your tsar at all costs in order to stay happy. But if one thing is clear today of all days, it's that tsar is anything but bad, because it reminds us of who and what gives us joy in the first place. That's why we celebrate Israel's independence the very next day. So take a page from Israel's and Confucius's book, which says we should feel sorrow, just not sink under oppression. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight is again going to be fairly warm and pleasant with a low of 63 or 70 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow you can expect sunny skies and a slight rise in temperatures to a high of 85 or 29 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.53 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Natasha Kirchak, and thanks for watching.